you knew he was special. You know what I mean? He was a kicker, but you knew still there was something special about him. Yeah. And in terms of the longevity and the amount of years that he played and the kicks that he's made, he definitely was a special guy. He would stand outside of the meeting room.
Okay.
With a gun.
An actual
which
gun?
Which is a paintball gun.
Oh, paintball gun. Okay.
Yeah, with a paintball gun. I said that wrong, but with a paintball gun.
It's like, what?
Some of the guys, you know, and some positions didn't always get respected, especially late 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, late 90s.
Who got disrespected? What position?
Obviously, you know, special teams. Most of the special team guys.
What kind of smoke were they taking? Were they bitter?
Yeah, give me the keys to the kingdom, 'cause I came, I saw, I conquered it all.
Hey, Priest, what's going on? Good to see you, my friend.
Yes, indeed.
We are in Las Vegas, Nevada at the moment, and we did some traveling to get here, and I figured we should do a story time episode about traveling. Do you want to do that? You want to talk travels?
I'm good. I think at first I'll start off. Earlier we were talking, you said something about Tecate. You said something about Juarez.
Yeah, Juarez, Mexico, Tecate, Mexico.
So years ago,
okay,
all right, when I'm in college, we were playing in the Sun Bowl.
Okay, the Sun Bowl. All right, flashback.
Yeah, playing
USA,
North Carolina.
Let's go.
One of my best games, man. That put me on the map at the University of Texas, right?
Yeah.
So,
the Sun Bowl.
anyways, we get a chance to go to Juarez.
Yeah.
Right, and you go across that border, right? And then there's like a little shopping area that's where we were supposed to stay.
Okay.
Don't go no more than 4 blocks out of that shopping area, right?
Yep.
And you can barter, you can make some deals and stuff like that. Well, a bunch of the players decided that I don't know, they wanted to go see the donkey or something like that. I don't know, something like that, some story about that. So they wanted to go out a little further out and ended up not necessarily getting stuck, but it was one of those things where half the team got in trouble. You know what I mean? Because they already knew that we didn't stay within 3 blocks of just, the good part of it. So when you talked about Warriors, man, I've got that story that I remember I can't get out of my mind where everybody was trying to get their butts back so they could get back on the bus at a certain time.
So what happened? Like, did players go missing? Like, were they?
So
nobody knew where everybody
went
was?
missing.
Because this is pre-cell phone, right? There are no.
Yeah, this is what
96, 95, something.
95, maybe?
Okay.
94.
94.
Yeah,
okay.
94. So, so the guys go back there, and everybody's told not to do it, basically.
Yeah.
And you got there's always those couple of defensive players.
Yeah. Tell 19-year-olds to not do it. What are they going to do?
They're like, we want to venture out just a little bit more, right? So
Sure.
not half, but a good majority of the team actually did half of the things that they weren't supposed to do, went a little further out. So some guys obviously didn't come up, they got missed. Some came missing, but not necessarily missing to where we didn't see them anymore, but just they missed the bus back. So there was some reprimanded. Some of the guys were reprimanded, but it ended up being my best game. Why? Because I didn't go across the border.
Wait, so you didn't go to Mexico?
I just went as far as that, they told us to go, right, to the shopping area.
Yeah,
but half of the guys, half of the stories, they were coming back, man, talking about, what I mean? Half of them got in trouble, Some almost came up missing, Well, and for them, they couldn't figure their way back, because it's one of those things, once the bus leaves, you got to figure it out.
So what did they do? Like, no cell phones? Like, they're in some street they don't know? Like, what?
Yeah,
they
said they dropped the University of Texas name. Said that's the reason why I'm here. We're here to play a bowl game. We're a football player, So, there's always somebody that comes to the rescue and kind of helps people out, but got them back across the border, believe it or not.
Lucky.
And got it back here. So that was probably one of my times going there across in Juarez.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So you balled out. Do you remember?
Yeah, I balled out, man. It was one of the games.
You remember anything specific about that game? Like, why'd you play so well that day?
Yeah, so it was like one of those things where it was a close game at the very beginning, first 2 quarters, and then like halftime hit, and then it just happened for me. The magic happened, and scored several touchdowns, brought the team back, and we ended up winning. Dove from the 5-yard line. Yeah, I got to go back into the archives and grab that.
Yeah, we'll see if we could dig up the footage on that.
Yeah.
Now, did they have a nice goodie bag for you back then? Because now you show up at any of these bowls, you get tricked out, you get all kinds of, treats.
I'm sure the swag bag today
Yeah.
looks a lot different than the swag bag.
Was there even a swag bag back
then?
then?
There was, but it was one of those things where you either were with Nike or you were with Reebok, right?
Okay.
And so basically what it would consist of is going to be probably a Nike bag or a Reebok bag, and then you're going to probably have 2 or 3 pair of sweats, and you're going to have a couple of caps, and so and you might have a pair of tennis shoes, So it stopped at that. So I think that now,
now they're getting air fryers, they're getting lifetime supply of Pop-Tarts, like they're getting everything now.
Look, so I mentioned this probably on one of the other podcasts where I talked about going to the first game of the University of Texas this year versus Ohio State, right? Right. Defending national champions, right? You're like, okay, this is going to be a tough game. All right, so I believe UT played a close game, right? They only lost by 7 points, right? So it was a tough game for them
All
as well.
eyes on Arch, too.
Arch,
there was a lot of pressure.
And then the last 4 plays were basically Arch's plays to do the comeback, and he overthrew a player, threw a couple to the dirt, and then almost got sacked on the fourth and on the fourth down play. But just being at that game and knowing like the difference about like how college football is, it makes a real big difference, man. And so that game was one in particular that I went to, man, that made a real big difference for me.
Okay. All right. So we're talking about traveling. We're in Vegas right now. What's it like for an NFL player to travel? That's half the battle, right? That's half your season before the playoffs. What goes into that? Give me a day in the life. Next week's game is a travel game. So what happens?
Next week is a travel game. I think for most players, they're trying to definitely get any of that rehab done before they know they're going to be going on the road, right? Because you're not going to have always just your people that you can go see, right? You're going to have maybe the team masseuse that's going to be there. You're going to have your rehab guys. You're going to have all that good stuff. So if you got all of that in play that week that you're getting ready prior to leave, then it's golden. You're feeling good. You got everything. All your boxes are checked. Now it's time to go to another city and have fun. And so what type of fun is that?
Yeah,
right?
So my next question.
So most guys, they're already already trying to figure out like where is going to be that nice dinner we're going to get in town, right? And so it's generally going to be on the basis if another player's already been to that city, if he's got friends from the other team that knows about a certain place, you're going to end up trying to have a very, very nice dinner. Then it comes to the nighttime, right? And it just depends on the type of team and type of coach and the type of atmosphere and the type of leadership that you have on your team. It really does. Because there's a number of guys that always know about the end spots, to go to. And usually what you have is a player from another team. He's probably going to line you up with reservations somewhere just to be your biggest distraction, right? They're probably going to send, it's going to be like, if it's wine bottles, they're going to have wine at your table, right? If it's bottle service, they're going to have bottles at your table, just so that they're going to have all the things to tempt you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And if you succumb to that temptation, right, it's going to be a tough Sunday morning or a tough Sunday evening, depending on when you got to play that game. But for the most part, I think on the road, it's always trying to find that nice dinner that you're going to have.
Okay.
And whatever that's going to be, pasta, steak, seafood, you try to have something like that. Now, there's always the guys that they're going to break curfew, and you got a handful of those guys.
So give me the schedule. Games on Sunday.
Yeah.
When are you getting into town? Getting into town on Friday?
You're generally going to, it depends on where you're traveling. If you're going across the country.
All right, you're playing for Baltimore.
Yeah, and you're going to San Fran? Or
yeah, you're going all the way across country. When are you getting in?
Typically, they're going to want to fly out on a Friday.
Okay.
Right, and just give you an extra day,
just to acclimate.
Yeah, acclimate,
time
get
zone
situated.
Change. Yeah, sure.
Get a full night's rest, knowing that, you're going to rest on that Friday night and you're going to rest on that Saturday night. But here's the thing.
I'm picturing rest in air quotes because of what you're about to say.
When you go across the country, right, and they're giving you the extra day, automatically the guys know there's probably not going to be really it's not a firm curfew. There's a light curfew.
Okay.
Meaning like you need to be back in the room by like 1 a.m., right? But that Friday is almost like the same Friday you have at home on a home game. And you know what most guys do on that Friday? They're going out and they're drinking, right? And especially on a Thursday night is a drink night. So for Fridays, for the guys that are disciplined, they're probably going to just have a nice dinner. They're going to leave it at that, right? You're going to have a couple of meetings on that day, but for the most part, everything starts on that Saturday, right? You have your walkthrough on that Saturday morning. You come back to the hotel that evening. You're going to have meetings, and those meetings are going to stretch out for about 3 to 4 hours, right? You're going to meet as a team. You're going to meet as an offense, defensive group, and then you're going to break down in your position meetings. You're going to meet. Okay. And then you're going to go into your room, right? Boom, lights out, wake up the next morning, then the game, right? But if you're, like I said, if you're there on that Friday, it's a party night. It really is. Yeah, it's game on. And the number of places that you can end up, you can just imagine, from bottle service. And usually what comes along with bottle service is a lot of other things as well.
Anybody going to concerts? Like if there was like a cool band in town or an artist or something, or another sporting event.
No, I've never seen that.
Okay.
No. No, not to another sporting event. It's generally
to
just like a
club.
lounge.
Just the club, yeah.
Yeah, it's a club.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and like I said, and it's also to find out what those guys are doing in that city. There's a lot of competition amongst players, right?
Yeah.
So you can imagine if it's on a Friday night and you knowing that you're going to the same place that the opposing team that you're playing, they're going to be there as well. Then of course there's going to be some type of showing out in terms of like who's ordering what, and, you know what I mean, and how much commotion are you causing in your area.
Oh, that's interesting. So it bleeds off the field into just before you even play.
Well, it's good, especially like just imagine if I was playing a team and I'm playing against a team, then I got other guys that I played alongside with, right? Like Brian Westbrook, who played for the Lions.
So you
Chris
play
Carter.
for the Chiefs now. You're playing the Ravens.
That's right.
There's going to be some player crossover there, right?
Yeah, some play, and then definitely, if those relationships, are really good and solid, those guys are going to pretty much, when you go into a city where guys that are there, they're going to line you up on where to go.
So riddle me this.
Yes.
Why does it always just so happen that the fire alarm gets pulled at the hotel at 3 a.m. on Sunday before a game? What's the deal there? Come on, spill some tea here.
That's happened on a couple of occasions, but that's rare. It's rare.
Who's doing that?
It's rare.
Is it a player? Is it a player? You don't have to name names, but I mean, is it? Or is this like
I doubt that it's an actual.
Is this like someone tipping off a fan, like, "Hey man, book a room at blah blah blah"?
Yeah,
I think usually
it's some type of sabotage mechanism, right? Because like you can just imagine, like half of the guys are going to be knocked out sleep, trying to get that rest, and then you have something like that going off
Jason
at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning, stuff like that. Usually, it's definitely not going to be like somebody. It's going to be a plant, like somebody has put somebody up in that hotel.
Any shenanigans, huh?
Well, the thing is that it's very hard for shenanigans to happen. I definitely during that time when we be in the hotel room, there's always 2 security that are on the floor. So there's usually a guy that's at the elevator, right? So he's watching whoever's coming on that floor. And then there's usually going to be another security guy posted that works for the organization. He's going to be posted back where the back stairwell is. But if there's 2 back stairwells, guess what happens on the second one?
The fire alarm gets pulled. That's what happens.
No, the fire alarm does not get pulled.
What happens?
Whoever has the room next to the stairwell is the alert guy to let you know who's looking, who's not looking, who's coming up, who can't come up.
Gotcha.
And, we all know who that guy is,
It's Eddie Eyeball.
That's right. It is like
Eddie Eyeball.
Let me know when it's clear.
Sure.
And most times when you would say, let me know when it's clear, and this is for the single guys, of course, you know what I mean? Because, they get to have all the fun, right? So the single guys, you can just imagine you're in the hotel and there's this certain stairwell that's unoccupied by security, right? And everybody knows where it's at. So you would have people or players that would book rooms in the same hotel with whoever they wanted on 2 or 3 floors above you.
Above, okay.
And then you can imagine what happens, right? You're like, call down to that room that's right next to the stairwell.
Sure.
Is it clear?
Is it clear?
And if it's clear, all your partners or friends or girls that are going to come down and, they're going to hang out and party and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, there is a curfew. So guys are knocking on the door and they're like coming around.
So the team has somebody that goes around. They've got spotters.
Yeah, they've had spotters. Yeah, I have to tell these stories because it's really
look,
funny.
These are young kids. If you think about it, like a lot of these
like
players.
21, 22, 24, 25. Yeah. Then you have your vet guys that already know all the ropes and already know all the ins and outs. And usually if you're up underneath the vet, he'll put you on game. Like he'll kind of let you know, like, here's what you can do. Here's what you cannot do. Here's the line. You can get very close to it, just don't cross over it. You know, it's one of those things like that.
Yeah,
But the
Juarez
vets
is over here.
yeah.
Yeah,
But the vets, you know, those are the guys that, man, they know all the secrets, you know, and especially when
are
they
they
got
double
those
agents?
relationships.
Are those guys ever
Sometimes
double agents?
they play it that way.
Yeah?
They really do.
Yeah.
They really do. And one, you know, and again, you know, Tony Siragusa is not, you know, not with us, you know, may he rest in peace. But he was one in particular, man, was a double agent, man.
Was he a double agent?
He would be on your side and then just set you up.
He player right into the media, double agent, man.
Yeah.
You're right. He was a double agent. Okay, so what would he do? He'd set you up, get you caught?
So during like preseason, one of the things he would do with the Goose, things he would do with the younger players is that he would stand outside of the meeting room.
Okay.
With a gun.
An actual
which
gun.
is a paintball gun.
Oh, paintball gun. Okay.
Yeah, with a paintball gun. I said that wrong, but with a paintball gun.
It's like, what?
And what he would do, he would post up, and any of the rookies that were on their way to come in for the team meeting, which, you know, as a rookie, you cannot be late.
Yeah,
Two things as a rookie, you got to make sure you cannot be late, and you have to have your playbook at all times. So you cannot show up to a meeting.
You literally you're carrying around your playbook.
You got to have that playbook when you go into a meeting.
Okay.
You can't just show up with that. You're going to get fined, or you're going to be in the doghouse, or something's going to happen.
Okay.
So Tony Siragusa, and this story's been told several times, he would actually stand outside, kind of hiding behind the doorway or the bush or whatever was next to that room, and literally just be picking off all of the younger guys, and so they couldn't come in. So it's like 7 o'clock, you know you need to be in that room, right? It's like if you're not walking with the coach to get in there, that's the only way you're going to get in there, right? And he's going to stand at that door, and before 7 o'clock, he's just going to just paint the whole driveway, you know?
It's amazing.
Or wherever your meeting room is at. And for us, it was like maybe like 45 minutes outside of Baltimore where we were at. And it was like an older hotel. Everything was outdoors pretty much, where the rooms were inside, but you can access everything from outside. It was only like two floors. And then it had like the place where you're going to eat at was like across the parking lot. So that was even worse, right? So yeah, he would pick off all the younger guys, wouldn't let them get in. And of course they would get fined or get yelled at, and you make a point out of it and stuff like that. So
and have paint all over their face.
Old Tony Siragusa, man. Goose, man. He was something, man. Definitely missed. Man, he was full of joy and jokes and stuff like that, man. And great guy. I mean, he'd be mean on the football field, but
sure.
Yeah,
nice guy.
He was all jokes and fun.
Yeah, he when he worked the sideline and stuff, you know, covering
that personality
NFL
that
games,
you saw on the sideline, that
seemed
was
like
his
a fun
personality,
dude.
you know. Yeah, in the meeting rooms, always had the best jokes. You know what I mean? Always trying to get up on one person as well. He also told one of the defensive linemen, which at this time it was like near the holidays, and he basically told this particular player, he's like, they were going to cook turkeys at home. And so this player had never cooked a turkey. And so Tony tells him, like, you know, you just get a large tin pan, you get your oil, you fill it all the way up, and you just drop the turkey in there. Okay. So he believed them and did exactly what those instructions was. Yes, literally, literally before Thanksgiving, he did that. And in doing so, of course, if you got grease and oil and it's heated up and you drop a turkey in there that's cold, what's going to happen, right? Grease is coming out. And that particular joker, and this actually was not during Thanksgiving. I think this was closer to Christmas time.
Okay.
And not only did he burn half of his apartment up, you know, from this, like there was damage to the other connecting apartments as well. Like it was, yeah, it was one of those things. Like when we were all in the team meeting room and we're waiting, and we're like, Goose is back there laughing and joking, and we're like, what's so funny? Why is he laughing? And he knows what has happened, and it's just a matter of time before they call the head coach, and you can hear everybody say, Goose, what happened?
Yeah.
You know, so.
He was always the source. Okay.
Yeah, he dropped that turkey in that grease, man, and didn't realize that reaction was going to happen.
Did he get burned? Did he get burned or anything?
Nah,
because that's
luckily
dangerous.
he didn't get burned, but yeah, he destroyed, you know, half of the apartment that he was in.
Amazing.
You know, it caused a lot of damage, and this was like I said, I think this was right around Christmas time. Breaking news from Bet365. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Sign up, place a bet for $5 and get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, player props, futures, and so much more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365.
Hey, do you have a gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Virginia. Or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 21 plus only, 18 plus in Kentucky. Please gamble responsibly. Must be present in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, and select parishes in Louisiana, Maryland, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Virginia. $10 minimum deposit required. Terms and conditions apply. In-app only.
Yeah, you talk about having a Christmas, man. Spoiler alert, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You can choose your own adventure here, but who got you in the biggest pickle?
Oh, man.
What teammate would try to get you in? Because to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you were always on time. Were you always on time? Were you good? Were you regimented? Because coming from a military background, I feel like you're not messing around.
My thing is
But
that
was there a teammate that was like,
if tip-off was 3:25 like it typically is,
okay,
I'm going to be there for tip-off.
okay,
Now, if you're accounting for me at 3:19 and 3:18, 3:16,
nowhere to be found.
Don't be counting on me, you know.
Okay.
Because I'm in my routine, you know, and my
Yeah, yeah.
routine leads up to the time that I need to just be where I need to be.
Okay.
You know? And for most guys and for most coaches, you know, that kind of drives them, you know, nuts because they want you there, you know, at a certain time ahead of time. But, you know, for me, you know, as long as I'm there by the time the cutoff time, that's
Okay.
what matters.
All
you know?
right. Favorite city you've ever gone to as a player?
Oh, man.
Whether it was on the
Yeah.
field result or off the field, it was just a cool town. Maybe you loved it so much you even thought about moving there one day. Is there just one city you loved going to?
You know, it's just, I can tell you the cities that I don't.
So
And
you
it's the
don't
cold
like.
cities.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Oh, you don't like the cold.
you know, growing
Yeah,
up
yeah.
in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and then, you know, of course, and then in Texas, you know, the cold thing was never really me,
Yeah.
you know, so definitely didn't like that. But one city, one place that I definitely would say probably is not the place I would want to play in, believe it or not, is Seattle. It was always like an overcast. It was raining. It was drizzling the whole entire time that we was there. I actually had one of my better games.
In
So,
Seattle. Okay.
yeah, I had a great game back in 2001 in that stadium. But yeah, it definitely isn't probably the city that I would want to play in.
And that's
Yeah,
one of
Seattle.
the further cities to fly to too. You know, it's in the Great Northwest. It's all the way out there. It's a long flight, basically from anywhere. So
Yeah, it seems
okay.
it's gloomy, raining, and there's always an overcast. So that's just not my type of weather.
Okay, it's not
Yeah,
your jam.
not my
And-
jam. But
and-
one of my best games, better games.
So if you were ever during your playing days, if you were ever offered a contract to play like in Cleveland or Green Bay, you know, one of these where you know it's just going to be a disaster weather-wise come end of the season, would you be like, nah, I don't think I'm going to sign for them? Like, is that much of a deterrent for you?
No, not that much. You know, because I'm all business. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could extend your career, you'd dip back in, you'd go play in
absolutely.
negative 20 degree
Well, you know,
wind
as a
chill.
running back, we also had that rule, the no sleeves rule. You know, so
Yes.
whenever we would
Yeah.
go to a team with cold weather, you know, we'd be eyeballing every running back like, you better not go out there with no sleeves on. You know what I mean? It's like, this is a
Mr.
tradition.
Tough guy.
You know?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But, you know, as you get older and maybe in your 9th or 8th or 10th, you start putting them sleeves on. It's like, man, forget this doggone tradition, you know. It's like, that's for the young guys, you know.
Yeah,
y'all take your sleeves off, you know. But
What else
yeah.
falls to the wayside? Like as you become a vet, like at what moment did you feel you were a vet?
Well, you know, there was a line, and we've talked about this before. So when I was a rookie, I would always see a line of vets right outside of the training room where the doc was at.
Mhm.
So I'm getting taped or I'm getting iced or, you know, I'm getting stem machine or something like that, some kind of treatment.
Mhm.
And you're kind of sitting there and guys are getting taped, but you see this line collecting. It's like all vets. There's no young guys in there. And you're just like, man, what's going on behind the closed doors? And so when I was younger, the older guys would be like, don't worry, you'll be in that line. Don't worry. And, you know, as my years went on, I'd still see that line. Vets would still be going in there. And what would be happening is that they would be going in there getting a Toradol shot, right? And that shot just basically allows you not to feel whatever pain you have or feel. You don't feel it no more. So you really do feel your comic books. We talked about that, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You know, you kind of feel like one of those characters.
You feel like Deadpool. Yeah.
Yeah,
where
you can just do anything, man.
Yeah.
You can just run and you don't have to stop running. You can run through a brick wall. You know, if you got to go tackle somebody, there's no fear. I'm just going to blow this guy up. Like, that's just kind of the mentality that you're having. And I always told myself, man, I'll never have to get in that line. You know, I stay in shape. I stay on top of things. But it gets a point in time, and for me, it's probably latter years, like around that 7th or 8th year, where you start seeing like, man, I'm not recovering as quickly. I think in 97, when I first started playing ball, I could go play a football game and go play basketball or just hang out all night and have no sleep or no rest and be ready to do it again and go hit the weights the next morning. Once you get older, man, your body starts telling you no mas. You can't do that no more.
So no more Friday night drinking. Before the games.
If you're smart, you'll drink some sweet tea, maybe. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Some sweet tea or non-sweet tea. But it gets tough. Like over the years, your body starts weighing on you. And I think as a player, once your body starts talking to you, and it kind of gives you that. It reminds you of what's going on. I remember during the off season, I was back in San Antonio working out with Bebe. He was one of the guys that I originally started working out with as a trainer.
Okay.
And every year we would go back, we would do like bleachers. We would pull the sled, we would run laps around the stadium. All right. And that was just like the warm up. And then we would work out. And I remember this time where they had us running like, all right, so you run a lap around, the track is 400, right? So we would run like walk a 200 and then run a 200. Then you'd walk a 200 and then you run a 200. And I remember at one point where this particular school was, it had like these trees to where like you could walk like through the middle of the field and kind of like shade yourself behind the trees to make it look like you walk.
Yeah, right.
All around.
I used to take shortcuts in track all the time too. Sure.
As a player, and you can we'll ask some of the guys.
Okay.
When do they think it comes a time where their body starts telling them that it's probably that time they need to start reconsidering some things? And it's when you start taking shortcuts as a player. Whether that's lifting weights and you start taking those shortcuts or, it's either showing up for your treatments and you're just like, I'll get the treatment later, That's usually when
don't
your
even want the
you,
treatment to get better.
Yeah, usually, ask a couple of guys. We'll ask a couple of guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll start taking those shortcuts on everything, like even down to like your playbook, instead of going through knowing, I need to make sure I'm up on all of the things that I need to know as far as the plays, the guys that I'm going against. I need to do a little research online. I need to watch some film, so you can learn a lot by just watching film on a defensive back. A defensive back that stays in his back pedal and it's never playing up close on that line. As a running back, you already know I've got about 5 to 6 yards before that guy's even going to come up. So how I approach that perimeter run, I'm going to be all out flying with no hesitation because I know he doesn't come up to the line of scrimmage. So it's going to give me an opportunity to square my shoulders and get downhill. Whereas if you have some of those stingier cornerbacks that are a little bit more aggressive, they don't mind putting their pads in your business, you're going to run that same track with the same type of speed, but you're a little bit more cautious because at any point, that guy could be behind the line of scrimmage. And if he's behind the line of scrimmage, that means he's right in front of your face. So, those are the things that you kind of got to look out for.
Hey, Priest, this is the part of the show where we get to interrupt ourselves, having a conversation with ourselves to talk about how things are never ordinary when you're with Bet365. And it's prediction time. And look, Thanksgiving week, when it comes to the football, National Football League, you got games on Thursday, you got games on Friday, you got games on Sunday. It's just a packed week and an exciting week for NFL fans. But I have to ask you one question before we get into the game we're going to talk about this week. It is the day after Thanksgiving as we talk about this. What's better, the actual Thanksgiving Day meal or the leftovers the next day?
That's a tough one, Mark. And, the reason why I say that is because the day of, you can't wait and you're anticipating that afternoon meal. I don't know how early most people, decide to break into that Thanksgiving meal, whether it's earlier or later. But I can tell you what, one thing for sure, that day after meal, incredible. The ham, the turkey, the rolls, the green beans, everything, the stuffing, everything is much better on that second day. I can't compare it to like a pizza, but when you warm up that pizza the day after, it's something about it. But this Thanksgiving meal, I'm going with the day after, Mark.
All right. I like it. I like where your head's at. I agree. I mean, I feel like the actual day of is more about who you're with, and having great conversations and hanging out with your family and your friends or whoever you're celebrating with. But when it comes to the actual meal that day after, man, chef's kiss every time. So much to choose from, so much great food. And sometimes it's even better served cold, depending on what it is. You get options. I like it. Not everything's piping hot.
Yeah.
All right, enough of that. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there who celebrated yesterday. I hope you had a good time. And let's get into some football convo, Priest. There's a game that jumps out to me this week post-Thanksgiving that I think is just kind of interesting for a number of reasons. And that's this Rams versus Panthers matchup. The Rams sit at 9-2, crushing it right now. A lot of people saying they're the best team in their conference. And then you've got the Carolina Panthers, who have been kind of riding this 500 wave pretty much the whole season. They started out slow, 1-3, but have since won 5 games, lost 3 more, and they sit at 6-6. But they're intriguing to me for a number of reasons. They have a shot at winning their division at 6-6. And when you're a 500 football team and you're only a half game out of first in your division, that must feel really good, right?
Yeah, well, when I was growing up, you could kind of, and this is probably more towards my college years, of course, the Dallas Cowboys were doing an incredible job. But when teams in certain divisions can sit at 6 wins and potentially be leading in their division, that reminds me, Chicago, Green Bay, potentially the Cowboys, I've seen that a number of times, but one thing takes for sure, if you get the W's and you have an opportunity to win, regardless of what your record looks like, I think any team will take that.
That's right. All right, let's dive into this game a little bit of a niche way here. Matthew Stafford, quarterback for the Rams, seems to be Benjamin buttoning this thing. He's getting younger as the years go on. I don't know what's happening right now. He's playing like a 25-year-old, 30 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions this season. And if people remember, at the beginning of the year, he was checking into the tent. We weren't sure if this guy was healthy. Is this guy even going to be able to play this year? And as soon as the switch flipped and the regular season kicked in, this guy has been nothing but fire and leading the MVP discussion. Like, what are your takeaways so far from Matthew Stafford, and how is he doing this at this point in his career?
Yeah, I just think that over the course of his career, he's been able to define that true professional. You look at his first 12 years, he had definitely several years where he had 4,000 yards. He's approaching that this season. The number of touchdowns that he has, that's incredible. I think his largest amount of touchdowns in the season was 41. That was around 2015, 2016, I believe. And, it's just one of those things where he's just taken over this team and been a true professional. Hey, I liked him when he was in Detroit, and I always thought that he had that professional, level-headed, could lead his team. You put him in the right predicament and he could definitely go for the win. But one thing I could say about Matthew Stafford, he's always had that flick of the wrist. He has the ability to get that ball out of his hand into his receivers, and they've got a loaded team right now. So I think that it saddens me that the way that the season started off with the Chiefs and the Rams. But, I definitely shows just his consistency of how he's led his team up to this point.
Yeah, I remember we were both disappointed that Casey didn't walk away with that win, early on in the season when these two teams played each other. But now we're seeing why. This Rams team is legit. I mean, at this point, if you ask anybody, they're probably the favorite right now. They seem to be just so dominant. And like you said, so many weapons. Wow, Devontae Adams, rebirth, right? Puka Nacua, the most fun name to say in the NFL, in my opinion, crushing it. They've got a great back in Kyren Williams, which we'll talk about shortly. But yeah, hats off to Stafford. But of all these players, whether it's Stafford having a resurgence, Devontae Adams having a rebirth, Puka owning it, Kyren being a great running back, who do you think is the breakout star of, who's the most surprising, do you think, of all these players that are crushing it for the Rams? Do you think there's one more surprising than another?
Well, I think it always goes back to the quarterback. I think what Stafford has done is that he's been such a consistent person at the helm of this team as the leader, as a quarterback, and it's just opened up the opportunities. I think when you have your quarterback that's playing very well, distributing the ball and getting into the hands of the receivers, it calls for only one thing: other players have to step up and be special. You talked about Adams, which I definitely like. The reemergence of him as well. It's incredible what some of these players have done. I think as a totality, the team has performed very, very well.
And never underestimate chemistry, right? That's the stuff you don't necessarily see, what's happening behind the scenes in the locker room, how players are getting along, and that translates so quickly onto the field. And look, winning obviously does help. That's the ultimate Band-Aid, but chemistry is a big part of that too.
Chemistry definitely is that, and for Stafford to be that person that's been able to galvanize this team and create these opportunities, I think is pretty special. I know we'll talk a little bit about Kyren Williams and what he's doing. I see some very special attributes in him as well. His ability to run the ball, get in between the tackles. I'm excited. I'm excited about where this team is at, what it's doing. The unfortunate part is that, they beat the Chiefs already. And this is a team that I think at some point, every team is going to have to go through this LA Rams.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, let's switch. Let's flip the coin here and go talk about the Carolina Panthers. I mentioned before, they're 6-6, but they're only a half game out of the lead for the division. The Buccaneers are dropping like an anchor. They've lost their last 3. I don't know, just something's going on with the Bucs. It's just not working like it was at the beginning of the season. Baker Mayfield, there were talks of him being the MVP this year, but that's not the case anymore because of what's happened recently. But the Panthers, I want to zero in here on Rico Dowdle because this is something that happened to you. You started your career in one location, you got traded or moved to another team, and then all of a sudden you pop off. I mean, Rico Dowdle was the backup to start the season. There was an injury. He had his opportunity. He went bananas, rushing for 200 yards, then almost 200 yards again, back-to-back weeks. And then there was a little shuffle of who deserves this, and it was clearly going to be Rico Dowdle's job going forward. Talk about that experience of the change of scenery, what that could do specifically for a running back, and why you think it's working for Rico Dowdle.
Yeah, I think for Rico, it gives you an opportunity when you go to a new team. It allows you to reinvent yourself. There could have been several things of how he ran the ball back in Dallas that didn't quite work for him. I think significantly he was limited in Dallas, especially the first 2 years where he had 7 carries the first year, out the second season, and then, produced last year with 1,000 yards. And so I think when you change the scenery and give a guy an opportunity to, at least be the go-to guy. But, it didn't even actually happen when he first got there as well with Carolina, right? Chuba that had the ability as being the starting running back with Hubbard. And until that injury, it really sparked an opportunity, obviously, for Rico. And so I think he's just done what most people have always talked about. I experienced this as well. There's a difference between being a true professional and just a running back in the NFL. You got to seize the moment. You got to carpe diem. You definitely have to take advantage of the opportunities. And I think that's what Rico has done. He's had an opportunity to be in the league long enough to go from being a rookie to then becoming, somewhat of a beginning vet. With the number of years that he's already got under his belt. But I think he's utilized the time that he spent in Dallas as what he doesn't want to experience and showing that if I have an opportunity, right, he's going to have a breakout season. And I think that's what we're seeing with him right now. When you just talk about his incentive-laden contract, talk about incentivizing a guy, right? Yeah. And his incentivized contract definitely is more heavily towards the number of yards, total yards from scrimmage, and also total touchdowns. And so just here in the last few weeks, he's been able to meet some of those standards, and hats off to him for that increase in his contract.
Yeah, that's right. And he could easily get to the 1,000-yard mark if he has another great game or an average game at this point for him, because he's been crushing it. But yeah, he could already hit that 1,000-yard mark. And for someone who wasn't a starter, I just think that's incredible to see that over such a short period of time.
Right.
Okay,
so if you duplicate his Cowboys and Miami game, he had half of his yards was in 2 games where he had nearly 400 yards. And I mean, that's what it takes. Crazy. It takes you to have a breakout success. And against some teams like that, you ever remember, he told his whole team to buckle up, when he went back to the Dallas Cowboys to play. And it was an opportunity for him for kind of to set the mark, set the bench of what type of caliber player that he can be and where he's headed. And I think that he's established himself as that as a running back in the NFL. It is now for him to take advantage of this with the Carolina Panthers.
That's right. Carolina, who will be the home team in this game? Rams versus the Panthers. All right, let's start with the easy one. Who's going to win this? Can Carolina pull this off? Can they get a win that could potentially put them, top of the division? How do you feel about Carolina's chances in this game overall?
With them sitting at 6 wins, I think it's a great opportunity for them to take advantage. Who else to beat than the Rams? But with the type of caliber team that the Rams are, I think it's very easily to say. I think that's what we're going to see, right? I think that's what we'll see.
Okay, so Rams, I don't want to say win huge, but by a sizable margin, you're feeling. Okay, do you want to put a score on this one?
Yeah, so
are you thinking like 27-10? What do you feel?
No, I think a little bit closer, obviously, just because it's a home game for the Panthers. And so I'm still thinking about 31 points that the Rams will put up.
31, okay. Going big.
Yeah, I'm saying 31. Big. They're explosive. But I think that it'll be a little bit of a tighter game. I'm saying that the Panthers will score right around 21 points.
Okay, all right. Now, I know I always seem to bring this back to fantasy for me, but I have a lot of players in this game. I got Kyren Williams. I got Rico Dowdle. I also have Davante Adams. So of these three players, who's getting into the end zone? Kyren, Davante, or Rico?
Well, Kyren definitely. I just think he has that innate ability that if he can approach the line of scrimmage with his shoulders square, it's something about his ability, his size, his stature, his explosiveness in between the tackles. Anything in the red zone, Kyren Williams is definitely going to get into the end zone. And plus, he can come out the backfield and he can catch the ball as well. He could run a slant route. He can run a swing route, and definitely has the ability low to the ground, one-on-one against a linebacker out in space. Williams is going to take that every time. So I'm going with Williams as definitely being a scorer of the game.
At least one touchdown. Okay, that spins us forward to Priest's Beast of the Week, and we're going to focus on the two running backs, Kyren Williams and Rico Dowdle. Now, you mentioned Kyren is going to get into the end zone. You really believe that? Do you think he gets two? Does Kyren Williams get 2 touchdowns in this game?
Yeah, I'm safe to say that he could get 2. Especially like I said,
okay.
I think getting into the red zone, Matthew Stafford is going to get them to the red zone. I think they will rely, especially being on the road, once they get down in the red zone, they're going to keep the ball nice and tight and secured and run the ball in.
Okay, I like the sound of that. 2 touchdowns for Kyren Williams. Now, Rico Dowdle, is he getting in the end zone, whether it's a catching touchdown or a rushing touchdown? Because like Kyren Williams, he also catches the ball and does a great job out of the backfield receiving. So does he at least get into the end zone one time?
When you talk about incentive-laid contracts and knowing that if he's already hit 6 total touchdowns, right? And he knows,
so he's getting 6 touchdowns this game.
Yeah, is 5 rushing and 1 receiving. So if I'm a betting man and I'm saying that he has 6 touchdowns and he knows that he could get upwards of $250,000 just by getting another 2 touchdowns, I'm pretty safe to sure he has every intention of getting in that end zone this weekend.
Man, so the incentivized contract is real. I mean, we see this all the time across sports where, it's a contract year or someone's looking to re-up. Maybe they're frustrated and they just play out of their mind. They play out of their gourd and it's just another level. What was that like for you? Like, did you ever feel any pressure when it came to contracts, your performance, when those things were kind of winding down or even just starting? You signed a new contract. Does that not make you get lazy, but make you sit back a little bit and go like, all right, I got the contract. I don't have to go crazy and get hurt here. Like where's your brain at when it comes to contracts and what happens on the field?
Yeah, if you could just picture this. Can you picture a gazelle walking across the jungle and there's a nice think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm just trying to picture a gazelle walking, which would be trippy on itself. Yeah. But I see where you're going with this. You
hear where I'm going with this, and whether it's a lion, tiger, it doesn't matter. Cheetah, they're licking their chops, and that's one of the things that when they laid out even the contract in front of me and said that it was going to be incentive based. For one, I was actually offended. But I know that the antics of the NFL and, that at that particular time, they had probably the leverage. Although I was in free agency, they did have the leverage in terms of, dishing out what they were going to offer out to me. But of course, they wrapped it in a nice red bow, and they said that it was going to be incentivized. And so for me, I'm licking my chops, saying, I know I have the ability to make people miss. You just put something in front of me in which I can see, and it's a target that I can directly identify. And you're saying it's whether or not I decide to study the playbook, I decide to lift extra weights in the weight room, I decide to be on time to the to all my meetings. You're saying that this is a possibility that it's not going to happen? No, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen very quickly, And so my hat's off to any of the guys in the NFL that have those incentivized contracts. It's due to them, when they put in the work in order to get it.
Yeah. The closest thing I've ever gotten to an incentivized contract is, with my phone company when my contract runs out. But it's never good for me. There's never incentive there. It just gets worse and worse every time, Priest. It gets worse and worse. Okay, so Rico Dowdle, you think has the opportunity to get it done with this incentivized contract. Kyren Williams also getting in that end zone twice. I love it. Okay, who's going to finish with more rushing yards? Dowdle or Williams?
When I think of Rico Dowdle, I believe it's more of an explosive game that he has to have in order for him to garner the number of yards that he would really want. I mean, if you look at even this past season, his production, has been consistent, but it's been consistently low on the lower end of 30 to 50 yards, per game. And then you have those breakout games, obviously with the Cowboys and Miami, which really elevated his game. I'm saying that if I'm putting the numbers between the two, I'm going to have to go with Kyren Williams because he's been much more consistent. He's averaged more close to 75 to 90 yards a game. And, over the long haul, when you have a successful team who galvanize together and you have all the components with your receivers, your wide receiver, your running back, and Matthew Stafford leading it, I think he's going to have more opportunity than Rico will have.
Okay.
So I'm definitely going to have to go with Kyren Williams with most yards.
All right. And we kind of alluded to this. Who's going to finish with more touchdowns? You believe Kyren Williams will get in the end zone one more time than Rico Dowdle? Okay. All right. So more touchdowns for Kyren Williams. And then how about this? This is a little bit off the beat path. How many more catches? Not necessarily yards, but who's going to get more catches between the two running backs? Do you think Dowdle's going to have more catches, or do you think Williams will have more catches in this game?
I've seen Rico on some of the extended plays where they passing the ball to him. And, I would have to just say that, I like his mobility a little bit better when it comes to catching the ball. But, I'm going to go with Rico on having more catches.
We got to give him at least one category, right? One category. Okay, with all this said, who's going to be Priest's Beast of the Week? Is it going to be Kyren Williams or Rico Dowdle?
Well, I'm going to go with the team that I know that's going to put up the points, and that's going to be the Rams. So I'm going with Kyren Williams. I think, with them having the record that they have, who wants to go and travel across the country and have that record, diminished by a loss, So I think that they're going to come in ready to play.
Okay. All right, you heard it right here. Priest's Beast of the Week is going to be Kyren Williams between the two running backs in this game, with the Rams taking it and going on to 10-2. 10-2, the Rams with Matt Stafford leading the charge. It's unbelievable. All right, Priest, I hope your Thanksgiving was extra special. You enjoy those leftovers today. That's the other thing about leftovers. You get to have them for breakfast. You get to have them for lunch. You get to have them for dinner. And if you're crazy enough to stay up late, you can have them for fourth meal. It is a long weekend, right?
Oh, yeah. I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait to the great food. I can't wait to the great leftovers as well.
Yes. All right. Shout out to Bet365. It's never ordinary when you're with Bet365.
Hey, do you have a gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Virginia. Or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 21 plus only, 18 plus in Kentucky. Please gamble responsibly. Must be present in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, and select parishes in Louisiana, Maryland, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Virginia. $10 minimum deposit required. Terms and conditions apply. In-app only.
Well, let's talk about the difference differences between playing football when you played versus what's happening today, right? Today we have so much more access. You know, there's behind the scenes access in the locker room. Players have their own podcast. You know, there's just so much more media content surrounding the league versus when you played. So with that said, what do you think some of the bigger misconceptions were from your era of playing versus kind of what's happening today when everything seems to be out there? Like, maybe,
give me an example.
Like from a fan's perspective, like I'm sitting in a room here, we're all football fans. We know the sport. We love the sport. We're passionate about our teams and stuff. What would be something we don't understand that's happening on your side of the coin that we always think we do? Like what's a fan misconception?
Oh man, what's a fan's misconception? Well, I'll give you an example. If it's right after a game,
Okay.
right, and you're getting ready to go out the stadium and go to your car, and let's say that there's fans there.
Okay.
The fan may not know that before that game, you had it out with your significant other. All right. And you now had to play a game for the last 3 hours and you didn't get that last text message in, you know what I mean? And so you're trying to get back to, your significant other and to, make it, get an agreement or whatnot.
Yeah,
right?
you're mid-conversation.
Yeah. And
it's real life. Yeah.
And so like a misconception is like the fan may consider it rude if that player isn't as friendly or isn't, giving an autograph or isn't smiling and taking the picture with you, but just is like beelining it to the car. So like that would be kind of like one of the misconceptions that like these players could actually have issues going on, you know what I mean, unbeknownst to, that fan.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it could be something really critical and very serious. It could be some news that they got that they didn't realize that they were going to, be getting.
Mm-hmm.
But I think outside of that, you would probably have to tell me some more maybe
what
you're considering.
Yeah. I mean, I distinctly remember waiting. I was in Cleveland. This was for a baseball game. Ken Griffey Jr. was playing for Seattle. And my dad was like, hey, we'll go around back. This is where the players come out, And I was like, yo, Griffey, what's up, man? Blah, blah, blah. I was 8 years old, so, however old I was. And he just blew by, man. And I was like,
yeah.
Like I was angry. I was
it happens
upset.
all the time.
But to your point, you get older, you understand these are real humans. They have lives. They're dealing with stuff. Or maybe it's just their rule. Like, because you interact with one, you got to interact with them all. Like, I want to get out of here. I got to get all the way back to Seattle. So I've seen that, right up there, close and personal. And it is heartbreaking because when you're a kid, you look at these players like they're magicians, they're magic, they're superheroes, they're these comic book characters, and you never think about that side of the coin. So no, I'm glad you brought that up. That perspective
another
too,
one,
because...
of course, is, and it's not necessarily with fans, but it would probably be more with family and friends, and friends, but maybe not necessarily a fan. But it's like a player going out to eat, and he invites, of course, a lot of family members to the game. Yeah, and now it's time to go to dinner after the game.
Yeah,
and now. Clearly, everybody may want to get a cocktail or two. Everybody may want to get an entree, right? Yeah. But the rack of lamb, everybody shouldn't get the rack of lamb. There's only one person that played the game, right? Yeah. Between moms that's there and dads that's there that might get the rack of lamb, everybody shouldn't get it, So that might be one of those things where it's like, oh, my cousin got it. You know what I mean? He's a football player, know, so... And they're ordering with the intent, like they have no intentions of paying it. And why? Because probably some of the stuff that they're ordering, they're probably not going to get it if it was on them.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
So that would probably be another one. Is like when you're going out after a game and you got family and friends in town, everybody assumes that it's on you. Yeah. So that might be one.
Stuff. Sorting tickets out, was that always challenging? Like on the road? Like let's say you're going to a town where, you got family.
Mainly home games.
There.
Because they're expecting you to be able to have tickets. If it's an away game, they're kind of like, you can't hit them with it's an away game. We don't get as many tickets. You know what I mean? So you can hit them, blame it on the organization. Like, we don't have access to the tickets, you know? But definitely when it's a home game, everybody's expecting to come.
Man, the expectations of just everybody on the outside.
Yeah, and those tickets can... And again, if you do it for 1 or 2 games, that's one thing. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But now they've added a game. And so, they can dive into the pocketbooks, But like everything is relative as well, you know? I mean, contracts are at a different level now. Mm-hmm. And so those tickets might get you a few more games.
Oh,
you know.
this just popped in my head. Here's another one. Like maybe it's a fan misconception of like the idea that everyone just gets along. You know,
Okay.
you're all on the same team. You're all teammates.
You
win together, you lose together. You're all hanging out. You're all best friends.
Nah, not at all. Not at all. And you know, it's a lot of personal things that go on as well. You know, whether it be girlfriends, significant others, family members, but players at the end of the day, you know, you can have a guy that you don't even really know, but you know he just didn't go to the same alma mater that you went to. It's like we got beef.
So
you know
you just
what I mean?
never talk. Are there players that you've been teammates with you never talked to? You just never even said hi?
Probably just didn't get, you know,
an opportunity to. Maybe they were
the
special
opportunities
teams
weren't
or
necessarily, not that they weren't even there. You just didn't take the opportunities to really get to know one guy versus another guy.
I mean, it's a lot of players.
Yeah, like if you, like for instance, if you're on a team and you have a couple of guys that are on your team that played with someone that you knew from a different team, right? You're more apt to be able to already have something in common with that person. So y'all chum it up and you're probably talking, and you know, but you know, if you have some guys that played for a team that, you know, you didn't really care much about, you know what I mean? Like it would have to bring something.
The shade is real.
Yeah, it would have to bring something that would bring you two guys together. And that means that they probably know a football player that you played along with. You're right.
Maybe you have a common.
There's a
teammate.
connection. Yeah.
Did you ever have a teammate come up to you and be like, "Hey, great game, man"? You're like, "Who are you?"
That's happened a couple of times.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah. You're just like, "What are you laundry guy?" Yeah, my jersey's over there. Needs washed. He's like, "No, man, I'm third street kicker. Come on, priest."
Yeah. Some of the guys, you know, and some positions didn't always get respected, especially late 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, late 90s.
Who got disrespected? What position?
Obviously, you know, special teams. Most of the special team guys. You
what
know?
kind of smoke were they taking? Were they bitter?
I would say some probably were. I mean, you have to remember, my first year in the league, I played nothing but special teams.
Right.
And I know you got treated different.
So you had an understanding. You had a respect for that.
So my respect for a guy on special teams is it's different, you know, because I've been there, done that. So
why do you think that is? Is the stigma that they're just like not good enough to?
Well, the thing is the fabric of any football team is made up with usually your special team guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the guys that's doing the brunt work. Those are the guys that are they're playing offense look team, defense look team. Then they're coming in, and they're probably going to play about 4 or 5 snaps.
Yeah,
but they're going to be all out snaps that they're running, you know. But you know, at times guys are going to look at him and say, well, they don't necessarily impact the game, you know, in terms of the number of plays that are played in the game, you know. And I think that was probably earlier of how guys might have looked at it. I don't think guys look at it the same way now.
Yeah. It's a little more respect there, hopefully.
Yeah, because there's a lot more fluff now in the game of football. So
that's
it's
true.
Like, wait a minute now.
All right.
Practices have changed now, you know.
We were going to talk about this on a previous episode, so might as well do it now. So let's zero in on the kickers, because you brought up special teams. And kickers, I will always defend kickers till the end of time. I mean, I come from soccer first. You know, a lot of soccer players convert and become kickers, where they go all the way to the NFL or whatever. Some people are afforded the opportunity to both kick and play soccer at the same time growing up in high school and then even in college, whatever. But this particular position is so unique because there is so much pressure on one single moment, right?
It is.
And not only that, but other people are involved, meaning like it has to be a good snap, then it has to be a good catch, then it has to be a good hold.
The hold is all what it's about.
Then it has to be a good kick. Then the weather.
That's right.
Then the opposing team all jamming their hands up because everybody knows what's happening. It's not like a normal offensive play where it's like, is this going to be a run? Is this going to be a pass? We don't know what it is.
That's right.
We know what's happening here. And everything is working out to be not in the favor of the kicker.
Yeah.
And then this guy has one thing he's got to do, and he either does it or he doesn't, right? It's so much pressure. How do you feel about the kicker position? Like, and are kickers respected on teams? You know, in the 90s, it sounds like maybe not so much. If I'm Scott Norwood, I feel like you can't ever go to Buffalo ever again. But if you're Adam Vinatieri and you're kicking the game in the field goal,
Adam had some swag during his career. He really did. Yeah. He was lighting it up too.
You're either all the way over here or you're all the way over here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How did the other positions look at the kicker and how were they treated? Sometimes they have to make tackles too, right?
this is where I found out for kickers, which made them valuable, is because they took on that leadership role and took it pretty serious, right? And so for those kickers that were more outspoken, right, and took leadership roles within the team, participated in gathering guys together, like, you know, for the younger guys, getting them all on the same page, saying, you know, there's a chapel service that takes place also in the morning, because you talked about what happens on the road or what happens on a road trip. Right. Well, you know, before the game, about 3.5 hours before that game, there's an actual chapel service. So for guys that want to kind of lock in, want to be on the same page with guys, you know, they may be used to going to church, they get an opportunity to do that, you know, and it's in the team room. You may have about 20 guys, you may have about 5 guys, but you get that opportunity. And I noticed that, you know, on most teams, the kickers usually are more affiliated with gathering guys together. And I think that's what kind of keeps their value. Because outside of that, man, when they muff the punt, or, you know what I'm saying, or miss that field goal, guys are looking sideways at them, you know. And so it takes a lot for them to come back, because guess what? Even though they could miss a field goal, they may not have that opportunity again for another couple of games before that comes back, you know, where it's that crucial for them to make that play. And then guess what? Everybody loves them again, you know. But it's kind of a love-hate relationship when it comes with kickers, you know what I mean? Because, you know, you're expecting them to make that shot. And you're looking at them like, look, during practice, while we're running laps and, you know, busting heads against everybody, we're looking at their workout and we're like, okay, wait a minute.
Setting up that tee.
Yeah, they just
but they're by themselves. They're all by
All,
themselves.
their whole entire practice, man. They're by themselves. They're setting it up. They kick a couple of field goals, man. They move over here to the other side of the field. They do the same thing, you know.
Did you ever have a field goal kicker call you out and be like, all right, you think this is easy? Come over here. Let's see how far you can. So between Phil Dawson, who I played alongside at the University of Texas, right? Played Cleveland guy, right? 20 years. Amazing kicker for the Cleveland Browns. My God. So good.
Yeah, definitely played a number of years.
Went to San Francisco for a minute too. Yeah, Matt Stover, sure.
Matt Stover with the Baltimore Ravens. You know, he was one of those guys, was that he definitely took on that leadership role.
Yeah,
very,
super
very
accurate
seriously.
kicker too.
Yeah,
Never
he was
missed.
very accurate, you know, and outspoken. He'd call you out also. He'd call the guys out also. Remember when I told you about that back door that might be open on those road trips?
Yeah.
Stover will call you out.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he'll call you out.
He had a paintball gun?
Like, now he didn't have the paintball gun, but he'd remind you, don't you got a wife? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. He'd get them, or don't you got a girlfriend? What you doing? You know, like, so Matt was that guy that kept guys, you know,
in check.
In check, you know. And
All
so
right.
he spent some time doing that.
So did you ever you ever try to kick a field goal?
I don't think I've ever.
In your life?
I don't think
tried
I've ever
it once?
tried.
Wow.
I don't think I've ever tried to kick a field
If you
goal.
could flash back, how far do you think you could hit? You think you can hit a 40-yarder?
So
I mean, you got running back legs.
So here's the thing. I'm sure that I could probably make a field goal, right? I'm pretty sure of that.
At least an extra point. Yeah.
Definitely
Distance
an
of
extra point.
Okay.
But I don't know. To me, it just seems like to kick a field goal further out and what that may cause to your hamstring, that's something I've never really been interested to even find out. That, you know what I mean? Because I've always been really tightly wound up, you know, with the leg, lower extremities and the lower body. So for me, I never really wanted to do anything that just to whip your leg out like that and kick. Nah.
And people forget about.
But a chip shot, like I said, 5 yards out, 10 yards out, maybe.
And people forget about trajectory, because you can kick a 75-yard field goal if you drive it.
Yeah.
But you got to get above.
That's right.
You know, these 6'8" linemen with their hands up in the air.
Yeah. And then especially if you got that wind coming in, right? And you got to try to push up against it or get over on the top of it and drive through that wind, you know, I'm sure it's pretty difficult. But I've always admired those guys because it was a talent, and, you know, and it's something that's very specific that you got to be really good at.
Yeah.
You know, and so I've always had a lot of respect for those guys. And again, like I said, they help you win games.
Yep. All right, and another fun note is if you look at the team leader in scoring for every team, it's almost always a kicker.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's almost always a kicker.
Get a leader on the board on that.
So I'm going to quiz you here. How many kickers that you played with can you name? Let's start with the University of Texas. You named Phil Dawson.
I got Phil. I got Matt Stover.
Yeah, that's for the Ravens. Yeah. You went to Kansas City.
But
do you remember?
You know what? I'm not really good with names when it comes to trying to like roll names out like that. So that's just one of my defaults.
So just go like this. Just go.
But
we'll insert the audio.
he was a kicker for the Saints. He was also a kicker while I was at
The Chiefs?
At the Chiefs.
Is that Morten Andersen?
Morten Andersen.
Yeah,
Man.
let's go.
You know, it's
Morten had the one bar, I think. He was old
Morten
enough to...
had a little swag about him too.
Yeah,
you know,
he had the hair coming out the back. Yeah,
He had a
sure.
little like you knew he was special. You know what I mean? He was a kicker, but you knew still there was something special about him. You know, and in terms of longevity and the amount of years that he played and the kicks that he's made, he definitely was a special guy. But I caught him at a different part of his career.
Yeah, you got the tail end.
I got the tail end, but he still had that mystique about him. You know what I mean? Yeah, he was a winner. He's a winner.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
he's
Shout
definitely a
out to
winner.
Morten Andersen.
Yeah, Morten's
Love
my
it.
guy, man. Love to get him on here.
Yeah,
man.
let's
Love
get
to
him on.
Yeah,
Let's get him
Morten's my
on.
guy.
We'll do a kicker show. It'll be good.
Yeah, Morten's my guy.
All right, Priest. Well, I want to thank you for sharing some more stories, travel stories, Siragusa stories.
Yeah, Big Goose, man. That's incredible. Like I said, even when I think about it, we've got to get a few guys on here to share some of these stories because the Goose stories,
all right,
they don't end.
let's put it out there. Who do we want on? Let's put it out.
They don't end.
Yeah.
They don't end. There are so many.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do it. All right, Priest, always a good hang, man. Good to see you, and thank you for shining a light on kickers for me. I appreciate that. All my cousins and my cousin text right now are angry with me because they all hate kickers.
Yeah, but look at this. You judge soccer. I know you've done some commentating on soccer
I
as
can
well.
kick a ball pretty far, man. I hit a 60-yarder.
Is that right?
Yeah, back in the day.
Okay.
I'm doing okay. Unfortunately, in my high school, when I was growing up, they didn't allow you to play two sports at the same time. So all of us soccer players that wanted to kick field goals too, and our football team at the time stunk real bad. They needed the help. They wouldn't let us do both sports. And then the year after I left high school, they changed it. And then, you could have soccer players go and kick and stuff.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that a little bit. Back at John Marshall High School, the coaches really pushed you to stay in one sport.
Like one sport?
Yeah, they pushed you to stay in one sport.
Yeah.
And for some guys, they just were just very athletic to where they would choose to play another sport. But again, two of the ones that you definitely had to play was football and track.
Right?
Yep. And I was never one of those track guys that loved to get out there and run. Like, I always thought running was when you need to run. Like, let's just say you're in Africa. And
you're spoken like any human on earth.
That
I'm only
jaguar
going to
comes
run
out after you know what I'm saying? Time to run. You know what I mean? Whether you're going to outrun it or not, just run indoors somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? So I've always looked at, running as like when you need it, that's when you do it.
Yeah.
But just to go out there and run, it's never been something I was interested in doing.
What a funny, efficient thing to say for a running back. Someone who played the running back position.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah,
I only run when you
too many
pay me.
running backs, I probably thought that. They probably ran track, played basketball, did all the different sports, and didn't mind running. But for me, when it was time to run, that's when I'm running. Outside of that,
That's so funny. This made me think of a joke, and I'm blanking on the comedian. I'll have to figure it out later. But New York City, or any city really, everyone's walking around. They're just on their phone the whole time. He's like, you know how we can solve this? We could solve this problem and get everybody off their phones? Just let a couple tigers loose in the city. Everyone will look up all of a sudden.
Phones are dropping.
Phones are dropping. People will be running. Yeah. That's good. All right, Priest. Right. Always good to see you, man. Another one in the bag.
That's right. That's good.
All right. Thank you very much, man. All right, Priest. That was good, man.
All right. Yeah.
This has been a Playmaker production.